Welcome back, my friends. Perry once more, and I am really excited about this next course. It is the Business Systems Analyst, or BSA. I'm just going to say BSA because BSA is a whole lot shorter, and we're going to be saying it a lot. Now, I love this job. I actually have been a BSA before, and I have to tell you, given at least my personality, it is an awesome position. Becoming a business systems analyst gives you opportunities that aren't available in a lot of other jobs. You get to work across many different departments in an organization. You get to learn a ton of new things, new technologies. You get to work with a lot of different teams. And it's just such a huge, it's a great career if it's what you want to do, which a lot of people are professional BSAs and spend their career doing it. And let me tell you, a powerful, seasoned BSA is worth their weight in gold. Someone who has really a lot of diverse experience and has worked on a lot of projects. It's someone you want on your team, to be sure. Also, however, a lot of people use the BSA role to jump into other opportunities, to find different jobs in management. So it's a great platform, either as a long-term career or as a starting point for other sort of growth in terms of technology leadership downstream. Now, a business systems analyst, BSA, they're really a combination of things. They're like part detective, part diplomat, part engineer, part project manager. They have to wear a lot of hats, and they really are the conduit between information technology and the business. Now, I'm going to talk a lot about the business, and if you hear me talk about the client and business, I tend to use those interchangeably. The business is basically the non-technology group that has a requirement and needs something built or delivered or implemented and has the budget to pay for it. They're the ones that say, hey, I'm human resources and I need a new HR system that does X. Or I'm in finance and I need a new financial system that does Y. So generally, the business, the client, will work with information technology to provide a set of requirements that will then drive the implementation or creation of a new solution to meet their specific requirements. And the key person to help drive that and be the bridge between the business and between technology is the BSA. The BSA is the one that can speak both languages. They can sit down and have a great conversation with the business and really try to hash out what they're trying to accomplish. And they can also meet with and spend time and guide and lead the technology group to deliver that solution that the business needs. So really, they're the primary liaison between the two groups, between the business and between technology. And the majority of projects that fail kind of fail early. And I want to say that again, they fail early. And the reason they fail is, well, projects fail for a lot of reasons. But one of the big reasons, at least the one that I've experienced, is poor communication and poor requirements gathering. Again, there's that word requirements. And requirements are really just that. They're a requirement from the business that gets translated to the technology group, and they come up with a feature or function that will meet that requirement in this new solution, whatever that solution might be. So if requirements aren't clearly defined and understood by both the business and technology, the project will fail. This happens all the time. Poor requirements gathering and poor communication of requirements and poor communication between the business and technology is definitely one of the predominant factors. So the BSA has to be that conduit between the two organizations to really translate what the business is asking for and translate that to technology so they have a clear understanding and they can say, yes, we can create a solution that will meet those requirements, will meet their budget, and we can deliver it in a certain time frame. That, my friend, is as much art as science to be that BSA. But let me tell you, it definitely is a lot of work, and it can be a little stressful, but it's also really amazing, especially if you're like me and you get bored easily and you can't just work on one thing for a year at a time. All these different projects are always changing, evolving, and the BSA is really out there in front making it happen. So, traits of a great BSA. they're easy to engage. These are approachable people. These are likable people. These are people that you like to hang out with. The BSA has a good personality. They're not prickly. They're really someone that you can go to and say, hey, I'm having a problem, or could you help me with this? And they're there for you. Absolutely. They have excellent written and verbal communication skills. Okay, I cannot stress this enough. Written skills and writing down and thoroughly documenting and making sure that that documentation is disseminated and organized and searchable and track, and that you can create plans around all that written information is really one of the core responsibilities of a business analyst. So when I first started my career, I had horrible written communication skills. I was always a pretty good verbal communicator, but my writing skills were just ass. I'm just gonna be honest about it. They were not very good. And I really had to bust my butt to get great at being a good written communicator. And even now, I'd give myself maybe a B+. I'm not an A+. There are some folks who are really great at it. But there's a core fundamental level of documentation that has to happen all the time. And the business systems analyst is the person really making that happen. Again, they're capturing requirements. They're capturing meeting notes. They're logging risks and issues. They're tracking bugs. All that has to be written clearly and concisely, and everyone has to be able to consume that information to be able to have it be actionable. And if you're not a great writer, and at least if you're not a concise writer, you're going to have issues. So definitely, if you're great written and verbal communication skills, this is a great job for you. If you're a little weak on one, you're going to have to buff up on those a little bit. Effective listener. Now, there's this quote from Dale Carnegie I love, and I probably way overuse it, but it says that most people don't listen. They just wait for their turn to talk. And oh my goodness, is that true for like half the people I've ever done business with? Most people don't listen. They just wait for their turn to talk. The BSA has to listen. And not just listen, they have to translate. Because they're dealing with the business. The business is the business of whatever their business is. Finance, HR, advertising, design. They don't speak tech. And they don't know what they don't know. And they may have built assumptions along the way. They may have seen a vendor who came in and gave them a really sexy presentation on something and jumped to a conclusion that that's what they need. But you need to listen, really listen about what they are trying to accomplish, what their pain points are, what their hopes and dreams are, and then you need to translate that so the technology group can really discern it and come up with viable alternatives. And if you're listening with prejudice, if you're going in there with your own concepts and ideas and me like, oh, well, this is what they need, and you're not really listening, then you're going to run into problems. Because when you have two people with two sets of assumptions right out the gate and they're not syncing and there's not really, it's not distilled down to the absolute bare bone basics of requirements, you're going to run into problems. So you have to be a good listener, but even more so, you have to capture what you're listening and translate that for the rest of the tech team so they can really understand what the business is trying to get to. Calm under pressure. Woo. So these projects are big. And when I say big, like my lovely wife right now is doing a project for a large retail organization, and she is heading up tests for that. And it's a $26 million project. And what's hilarious is it's not the company's biggest project. It's like the 7th biggest project. These numbers are so high in these large companies, the type of tech projects they do, that it is not uncommon for people to lose their jobs because decisions were made poorly over the course of a project. Whole careers are destroyed because of decisions made during high dollar projects. So you as a business analyst, you have got to be that calming force, the Zen Buddha, bringing the calm and the love to the project and trying to get out in front of any potential issue before it becomes a real major problem and nightmare to all parties involved. You have to be calm under pressure. Multidiscipline. I think this is great, and this is one of the things I love about BSA. You can come from a lot of different backgrounds and be an amazing BSA. So what inevitably happens is people will start off in one career track get bored or get stifled or hit a point where they can't make any more money, and they start looking around for other options. Good example of this. I know a few individuals who went to school for nursing. They were very talented, awesome nurses, but they really weren't the people. They got tired of taking care of people, I guess. They'd get mad at me if they heard me say that. They just wanted to change. And so they went and did a little schooling, got certified as business analysts, and now they help implement HIT projects, or healthcare information technology type projects, type systems. So their amazing background in working in the hospital is so powerful in implementing the systems that support the hospital. That's just one example. You could look at manufacturing, marketing, advertising, all those. Technology drives our entire world now, and there's all these different specialty systems. Being able to have that background, that multidiscipline background, where you can say, hey, I'm actually really familiar because I've been the business user before on this, and I know what the pain points are. That's really powerful stuff. Curious, inquisitive by nature. You got to be curious, because here's the thing. You're going to get thrown on projects as a BSA that you know absolutely nothing about. You're going to start working on, let's say hypothetically, you have more of a finance background, but you're at a large company and they're like, oh, you got to go do this HR project, and you don't know anything about HR systems. Well, you got to learn. You got to go out there and you got to find out information about the system you're implementing. You got to find out what the common challenges are that HR departments experience. You got to figure out who all the players are. You got lots of homework to do. Being a good BSA really happens as much in the research as it does in the action. Actually knowing what the different variables are, who the different players are. You got to have that curiosity, and you definitely got to be inquisitive and do your homework and ask questions. You just can't sit there in a vacuum. Otherwise, you're not going to be particularly effective. Strategic thinker. We talked about how stressful sometimes these projects get, especially if they're big dollar, high profile, high visibility projects. Some companies, and let me put it in perspective for you, there are companies who have had IT projects like maybe enterprise resource planning or large-scale CRM, customer relationship support, that have gone sideways, and it's tanked the stock price of the company. That's how big a deal some of these IT projects are. Now, that's not going to be the bulk of what you work on, but you definitely could work on those projects. And people get weird and uptight, and if they feel like their job is in danger, they get really all kinds of strange. You got to be strategic. You got to realize that maybe some people have different agendas, or some people are trying to cause problems that maybe aren't appropriate. You never know. It's a weird world out there, and people do weird things. You have got to pay attention to all the different elements and be strategic. At the end of the day, your only goal in life is to make sure that project's delivered on time and on budget and meets the requirements that are agreed upon with the business. And anything else is just a burden and noise, and you have to be strategic about how you get around that, how you're going to navigate all those different challenges to ensure the project is successful. And that's one of the big goals for both the business systems analyst as well as the project manager. Team player. This is completely a team sport. Being a business analyst, you are working with a team. You are not an individual contributor. Everything you do impacts both the business, the customer, as well as your tech team that you're working with directly. So you got to be a team player. If you're not so good on the team, this may not be the job for you. You got to work well with others. Otherwise, it's going to be a challenge. Approachable with a relaxed disposition. I was thinking about this because I've worked with a lot of different folks across business and IT, and the business analysts that I always love the most are the ones that generally have a smile on their face and don't look super stressed out. Some people can be a little drama. I think you might know one or two of those. Those folks you don't want to really rely on, and those folks you don't want to put a ton of responsibility on. You want to really deal with the folks that are relaxed, approachable, and don't lose their nerve every time some little challenge emerges. So that's right. It's really important, kind of going back to that calm under pressure. You just want to give that aura of being approachable with a relaxed disposition. And I'm not sure if you're noticing it yet, but all these traits are the traits that generally senior management wants to see in their leaders. So this is why being a BSA is such a great jumping off role to move into leadership in an organization. Because again, they want their leaders to be calm under pressure, team players, approachable with relaxed disposition. So these are just great skills to have in general if you want to grow in your career. Detail oriented. Woo! I got to tell you, it is critical that a business analyst is detail oriented. And I learned this lesson the hard way. Because I have a lot of great attributes. When I first got started, I was not what you'd call a super detail-oriented person. In fact, if I'm just going to be very transparent, in my personal life, I'm probably not as detail-oriented as I should be. But I'll tell you, after having a few things blow up in my face because I wasn't as organized and detailed as I should have been, I got detail-oriented pretty quickly. So there are so many things that could potentially be burdens or cause problems or be bottlenecks in a project, and you've always got to kind of keep your eye on those and communicate them. And at some point it almost becomes instinctual, but you've really got to make sure that you are detail oriented, that all your information is being collected, documented, disseminated, managed appropriately, that you're communicating with all the right parties, that you're communicating risks and issues. It's the details that make a project. And, it's an overused saying, but the devil is in the details, and that's 100% true, because let me tell you, a project can go to hell quickly if you don't take care of the details. So, working closely with the client, the BSA examines all this stuff, existing business models and flows, their data, their different needs. They dig into it. So, having a good sense of business acumen and being comfortable with data is not a bad thing. I'm just going to warn you right now, you're probably going to be going through miles of Excel files. And actually, one of your goals is to probably consolidate those Excel files into a more manageable format, like a intranet SharePoint or, BI reporting or dashboarding. That's one of the real core aspects, is getting all this crazy extraneous data into a manageable source. But you've got to have the patience to be able to go through all those Excel files and capture all that information so nothing gets missed during the project. And because the BSA is interfacing with the technical project team to design an IT solution that satisfies the client's requirements. But I'm going to give you, it's not really a secret, but just my personal experience. The client will not know all their requirements. They will not figure out some of their requirements until you're 2/3 through the project. So that's why it's so important to do your homework, go through the data, look at all the different variables so you can figure out some of the requirements for the business and get out in front of it. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, but it's really a reality that you as the BSA have got to do that homework and do the heavy lifting from a research perspective, because often the business won't do it. However, if things are missed and something is perceived as being undone or a feature is not there and the business is unhappy, there'll be this perception. And by the way, I hate that word perception, but let me tell you, it wields a lot of weight. There will be a perception that the project was a failure. So you got to be comfortable doing that homework so you can get that technical scope together so nothing's missed, so that you can deliver a project that the client will be happy with, that the business will be happy with.